recall any concerns being given by Kenny Ortega or others about Michael Jackson's condition during performances or rehearsals?
In May?
In May.
No.
All right. Did you have any conversations with Michael Amir Williams about Michael Jackson's condition?
No.
All right. So let's go to the meeting in June, the first meeting. Do you recall the conversation? What conversation was being had at that meeting?
Very, very vaguely, because it was so long ago. I just remember during the meeting, Dr. Murray said that he was going to make sure Michael had a proper diet, and he was preparing these very high nutrient protein shakes for him. And that's kind of the highlight that I remember of the meeting.
Do you remember having a conversation with Dr. Murray about Michael Jackson's health, about his condition during that meeting?
Just asking him how is his health, is it good? And he said yes, he's in great health.
Any other conversation with him?
Regarding?
Anything involving Michael Jackson's condition or medical history?
No.
All right. All right, so the agreement was made, or were you satisfied at the meeting that everybody had addressed the issues with Michael Jackson's weight and health?
Yeah, I felt very good based on both Michael and Dr. Murray's responses.
All right,
as did Frank DeLeo.
And how did you feel about how Dr. Murray responded to your concerns, or the concerns of AEG or the production company?
Well, it was all of our concerns, but no, it was very obvious that Michael had great trust in Dr. Murray in that meeting and deferred to him on the questions of health.
And was it obvious to you that Dr. Murray also had great concern for Michael Jackson?
You're asking my observation?
Yes.
Yes, I thought they had a close personal relationship.
All right. And it appeared that Dr. Murray wanted to help Michael Jackson.
Yes, it did.
Were you directly involved in any of the negotiations with Dr. Murray, hiring Dr. Murray for this tour?
No.
All right. Want to go past the meeting early June and talk about where the production was after that time. Now, at the time that you had your first meeting in early June at Michael Jackson's house, rehearsals were going on at that time.
Yes.
All right. And they were going on at the Forum, is that correct?
At that time, to the best of my recollection, they had probably left Burbank Center Staging, which were the rehearsal studios, and had moved into production rehearsals at the Forum. It was sometime in June.
All right. And so do you recall whether or not the rehearsals were at June at that time during that meeting, the first meeting in June?
No, I don't.
All right. But rehearsals were absolutely going on, you know that? Right?
Yes.
Okay. And Michael Jackson was expected to be at these rehearsals?
Not at all of them, no.
Was there any concern sometime after, in June, about Michael Jackson missing rehearsals?
There was a concern. I think it was more towards the second week in June that Kenny expressed, Ortega expressed to me.
All right. Prior to the second week of June, did Kenny Ortega express any concern about Michael Jackson missing rehearsals or having poor rehearsals?
Well, not during the May rehearsals were at Center Staging. And Michael came to a few of those, but he wasn't expected because there was a new band, ostensibly. There were some of the same players he'd used before, but a new music director. So they were getting the music right, and he did not need to be at every one of those rehearsals.
Okay, so there was no concern in May. How about prior to your meeting, your first meeting in June of 2009? Was there any concern expressed by Kenny Ortega or anybody else?
To the best of my recollection, not that early.
All right, so now let's go that first week of June, the early June, and let's forward that. You're saying that there were problems then with Michael Jackson missing rehearsals.
Kenny started to get concerned that Michael wasn't engaged as much as he needed to be, as focused as he needed to be on a production of this magnitude.
And you say he started to get concerned? Was this a progressive problem, or did he just get concerned after missing one rehearsal?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
All right. Did he address this concern with you? Did Kenny Ortega come to you and say, look, we need to do something?
I think well, Kenny spoke to me numerous times, but I think he first went to Paul and to Frank DeLeo. Because they were there every day. I had a business to run. I was doing other things.
All right. Now, as we get into June, do you recall when this production was about to pack up and move to London? Do you know the date of when that was going to occur?
To the best of my recollection, it was supposed to move to London around June 25th.
All right. And so as we get into June, it becomes extremely important, doesn't it, that rehearsals are attended and well and done well by all the individuals involved, because you're getting close to the time for the show to start. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Sort of the pressure on Kenny Ortega and the entire production rises as you get closer to that show. Is that right?
That is correct.
And is this pressure, did you start seeing that in Kenny Ortega?
Yes.
And the main concern that Kenny Ortega was having was Michael Jackson's performances showing up at rehearsals.
And his focus.
And his focus
was the word that Kenny used.
When Kenny Ortega brought this to your attention, what did you do?
I may have had a conversation with Dr. Murray. I remember having a phone call with Michael Amir Williams saying, it's really critical that Michael show up for rehearsals because the show he's the fulcrum of the production and it really revolves around him. So even though he knows these dance moves, intimately, and he's just reinterpreting what he's been doing his whole career, okay, the entire show, it's such a massive production, it really needs Michael's presence because people have to key off of him and they have to build the cues, the effects, everything off of Michael.
And why did you call Michael Amir Williams and not Michael Jackson himself?
Because when I actually called for Michael to have that discussion, but Michael was, I was told he was resting at the time.
All right, so you had the conversation instead with Michael Amir Williams.
Correct.
You said also that you spoke to Dr. Murray.
I think I may have had a phone call with him. I'm not 100% sure.
All right.
Because there was so much going on at this time.
Did you speak to anyone else?
No.
No. Ultimately, as things progressed, there was another meeting held on the 20th of June at Michael Jackson's residence. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now let's talk about the events that occurred the week prior. You're familiar that the week prior there were further missed rehearsals. Is that your understanding?
I wasn't at the rehearsals that week.
I wasn't at the rehearsals that week is the answer.
You
Sustained, the answer remains.
Did you receive phone calls from Kenny Ortega stating that?
Objection calls for hearsay.
The objection is sustained.
There was in trial, you understand that there was offered into evidence or shown to the jury an email that was sent from Kenny Ortega to you.
Correct. Yes.
And you have seen that email?
Yes, you showed it to me.
Okay.
What exhibit number?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, just for the benefit of the jury, since it's been reflected, can counsel take a moment?
Yes, we can. Let me see your list.
I think it's People's One, actually. Thank you from the peanut gallery in the jury box. People's One. Thank you.
All right, this email from Kenny Ortega, do you recall getting this email?
I believe I got it the next morning. I think it was sent in the middle of the night, and I received it when I awoke the next day.
All right, this email that talks about pulling the plug, about we played the tough love card. Did you understand what Kenny Ortega was talking about?
I didn't understand the tough love part of it. So no, I really wasn't sure what he was referring to by the tough love part of it, but I understood the rest of the email pertaining to Michael coming to rehearsal but not being well, being sent home, and that he was getting concerned that Ms. Paul Gongaware described the arc of the production. First time I had ever heard that, but that as we were getting closer to the actual opening of this massive show, that there was concern that Michael wasn't really taking it seriously enough or focused on it.
Was there concern that the show could not go on if he didn't take it more seriously?
No.
So the concern was that it would have to be pushed back further and further and further?
That there might have to be postponements if they didn't have enough technical time to deal with the size of the production.
And at some point, it could be postponed to the point where production would not be possible.
I can't speculate on that.
When Kenny Ortega in his email suggests pulling the plug, is that a phrase you used or Paul Gongaware used? Do you know where that came from?
No. First time I read it was in that email.
All right. And
No one on our end was ever contemplating pulling the plug.
Was this do you know whether this is a conversation that Kenny Ortega had with Michael Jackson?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained. Calls for hearsay.
What did you do in response to getting that email?
Well, actually, I got the email, but Frank DeLeo, who was out of town at the time and also received the email, or was forwarded a copy. I don't know if he was on the original chain. He actually called me from either Nashville or Pittsburgh, where his principal residence was, and asked me if I would put together a meeting on that Saturday. I believe this 20th was a Saturday. Would I put together a meeting with Michael, Dr. Murray, Kenny Ortega, and myself?
He was pretty adamant about that meeting?
Who, Frank?
Yes.
He thought it was essential to have the meeting, yes.
All right. And what did you do then?
I believe I either emailed or called Dr. Murray to set up the meeting.
Did Frank DeLeo, in his conversation with you about having this meeting, did he ever mention to you concern about drug use by Michael Jackson?
No.
No. All right. Do you recall having any conversation with Dr. Murray about drug use by Michael Jackson?
When you say drug use, are you talking about prescription drugs?
Yes.
There was one conversation I had with Dr. Murray after in the June meeting. To my recollection, it was at the end of our meeting. I believe I went up to Dr. Murray and said that Dr. Klein, who's a dermatologist in Beverly Hills, was also treating Michael, and was he aware of that? And I just left it at that.
All right. And why did you feel the need to tell Dr. Murray that? What was your concern?
My concern and why I felt I should tell him or ask him if he knew about that was that there was a meeting at a production meeting at Michael's house around that same time period where Michael was not as focused as he usually is. Because on the production meetings, he was like laser focused on every element of the show. I mean, he's a consummate perfectionist. In this one meeting, he just seemed a little distracted, not focused.
What did that have to do with Dr. Klein?
Well, after the meeting, as we were leaving, I asked Michael Amir Williams, I said, is everything okay? Out of concern. And